Hello everyone. It's me, Arden Lee. I am back today with another video, and in today's video, I want to talk about the art and practice of discernment. I want to make sure that I spend a full video talking about this because this is something that is incredibly crucial, incredibly crucial. Something that is crucial to the work that I do, to everything that I teach, and it's one of the basic building blocks on which comprise the foundation of everything that I do, specifically regarding my own personal transformative process, and now also regarding what I teach to others and the ways that I aim to empower others to make decisions that feel good for them. So essentially, discernment, when it comes down to it, is the art of making decisions that feel good for you, that you feel good being responsible for, and that are made with your own best interests in mind regarding what you allow into your field, what you choose for yourself, where you choose to place your focus, and what you discern. I realize I'm using a variable, the word discernment, in my definition of discernment. What you decide is a good choice for you and is not a good choice for you. What is applicable to you and what does not feel applicable to you. What feels healthy to you and what does not feel healthy to you. So we're going to get into that a little bit today. If you don't already know me and my work, my name is Arden Lee, and I am the creator of the Repatterning Project, which is an 8-week course where we come together to learn the art and practice of discernment, to be able to take responsibility for our choices, to be able to cultivate that conscious awareness that allows us to look at our lives and the options that are in front of us, and to be able to say, yes, I choose this. This is good for me, and this is something that is going to optimize my happiness, my success, and move me closer to a life that I find personally fulfilling, a life where I feel capable of achieving my goals, where I'm really looking at everything that's in my field, and I'm making choices for myself that I feel good about. So we're going to get into that a little bit today. And if you want to know a little bit more about the course itself, I invite you to check out the description box. And in the description box, I have a link to a free PDF about the Repatterning Project where you can learn about the modality and you can learn a little bit about what we do. And I also have a link to a free Facebook group that I moderate called the Repatterning Parlor, which, as the name suggests, is a sort of welcoming hub for people who are interested in this kind of material and want to connect with like-minded individuals and exchange support, and have a place where they can discuss all these kinds of topics about their own self-improvement and personal growth. So check those out if that sounds like something that interests you. And if you do join the group, come and say hi. And let me know where you found it. I'd love to know where people are coming from. So don't be shy. and yeah. So let's now move on to talking about the art and practice of discernment. At some point, we have to realize that there is nobody who is responsible for our lives and our choices except for us. Now, that doesn't mean that people are not responsible for the harm that they perpetrate onto others. There is nothing in personal responsibility that ought to be conflated with victim blaming, because there is no reason that anyone who has something happen to them that is harm, that is perpetuated by another person, there is no reason that they should be to blame for what happened to them. Absolutely, the blame should fall on the person who is perpetuating the harm, and that person, hopefully, ideally, should be brought back into alignment, brought into realization of what they're doing. That's why we have transformative and restorative justice processes. And that person should no longer be enabled in continuing to perpetuate the harm that they are enacting upon others. There's a huge difference between victim blaming and taking personal responsibility for the choices that you make. The thing that I like to say most often to differentiate this is that if someone comes along and vandalizes your house, you are absolutely not to blame for the fact that they vandalized your house. That's something that that person chose to do. That's something that they did that you don't need to take any blame for. However, the person who vandalized your house is not going to clean it up for you. Unfortunately, and we don't live in a just society, as you probably have recognized when you read the newspaper or look out your window. Who reads the newspaper anymore? When you read the news online, when you even sign on to your social media, it's pretty obvious that we do not live in a just society. So I'm not saying that this is right. However, it is the truth that if someone vandalizes your house, nobody is going to clean up your house except for yourself. And that's where you can start to take personal responsibility for your healing. How does this apply to discernment? Discernment is that art of taking personal responsibility for our own choices and being able to say, this is good for me and this is not good for me. Discernment is different from judging. Judgment is where you look at something and say critically, objectively, this is good and this is bad. And because this is good and this is bad, I therefore prescribe this thing that I've deemed as good to be good for everybody. And this thing that is bad to also be bad for everybody. It is making a judgment on a universal quality of something. Discernment, on the other hand, says, this might be right for someone, but it's definitely not right for me. This other option over here does feel right for me, even though it doesn't feel right for everyone. The art and practice of discernment is one of the core foundational things that I teach, because if there is ever anything that I say that doesn't feel right for you for whatever reason, I invite you not to take it to heart. There is only if I'm producing the content that I'm producing per week, and if I am to put out material there that is aimed with the intention of empowering people, I'm completely missing a huge piece of that if I try to say that everything that I say has to be right for you. That would be kind of ridiculous when we think about it. If I had to know, if I made it my job to know what was right for everyone, for every single person out there who is encountering my material, that would honestly be pretty delusional. That would assume that I know what your exact circumstance is, what your exact situation is, and that I believe that I myself am able to prescribe a way of being that works for you, even though you're sitting on the other side of the screen and I've never met you and I don't know what your life is like. My aim is to create material and teach lessons based on what I've learned that have worked for me, and to put those things out there in the world based on what I've learned that has worked for me, and of course also based on the research and certifications that I have. I don't believe that my experience, although I'll say I would flip the order of those two things. The first thing I did was I got certifications and I did my research, and then I applied the things that I learned to myself to see what really worked. I went into a lot of my work, my own transformative healing process, with a really open mind, and I wasn't ever looking to learn about this because I wanted to become some sort of authority. I was looking into it because I wanted to learn how to fix my shit. And as I did that, as I decided to go within and get all of my own issues and inner algorithms and mechanisms sorted out, I learned a lot, and I shared my process along the way. And I found throughout the course of sharing my process that there were a lot of other people who were learning as well and who gave me the feedback that what I was saying was helpful. So I continued to go down this path. I would be ridiculous if I believed that every single thing that worked for me is also going to work for you. I often have to remind myself consciously that the way that I do things is not the way that everyone is going to do things. So I will often couch what I say with that disclaimer. For example, I believe for me that using speed, not like the drug speed, that sounded like I was talking about like substance use. I believe that using speed in my journey to get to my healing as quickly as possible without compromising the integrity and sustainability of my healing process is the optimal way to go. Because frankly, I just want to be there. I'm doing this so I can feel good, and I want to be. It's like the ending of When Harry Met Sally, except it's me to myself. When you realize the person that you want to spend the rest of your life with, then you want the rest of your life to start as soon as possible. That scene could basically be me on my healing journey, only it's like me talking to my higher self, right? As soon as I realize what that thing is and what that alignment looks like, I want to get all of my bullshit out of the way as quickly as possible. But as quickly as possible while still making it sustainable and with integrity, not cutting corners or skipping steps, right? So that's one way that I do things, for example. It would be really foolish of me to assume that everyone else wants to do the same thing. There are other people who are also prioritizing their comfort more than I have prioritized my own. I am very chill with a lot of discomfort in my spiritual journey, and I think that has I think that my work has kind of made that obvious. I've specifically set intentions where I'm like, I'm ready to just take the elevator to the top floor, and if I get nauseous on the way, then just so be it. I will just cope with it. Not everybody wants to do things that way. There may be people who want to take their healing journeys a lot more slowly because for whatever reason, that feels more comfortable to them. That is why I am so adamant about the art and practice of discernment, because what I want to do is I want to empower people to be able to make choices that feel good for themselves. So I might make suggestions, I might say what has worked for me, but in no way would I ever try to tell everyone that is what has to work for them as well, because everyone is a different person. So what this really comes down to is taking what works for you, and if there's something that doesn't work for you, that's worth looking at, and it's worth saying, let's go deeper with my levels of discernment, and let me ask myself, is this really not working for me, or is this just triggering some resistance that I have? But at the end of the day, if you're like, no, this actually really doesn't work for me, then that's wonderful. That's what I want to be able to empower you to do. So the art and practice of discernment is essentially feeling into your body and saying, does this feel right to me? Does this feel like the thing that I want to do? Do I feel inspired by this? There's a gazillion inspirational teachers and leaders out there. For some reason, you're watching my video right now, and I thank you for that, because I aim to be able to inspire people and to make positive impact, and I appreciate everyone who allows me to be able to do that in the world. At the same time, it's really important to recognize how much of that is a personal choice. I don't want you to give away your power to anyone outside yourself to know what is best for you. That's what it really comes down to, even if it's me. I don't want that power. I don't want someone saying, well, Arden told me to do XYZ, and I did it anyway, and it didn't work for me, and and now I'm upset. Actually, if you try something and it just doesn't work for you, then that's certainly a learning experience. But please don't ever feel, if you feel that intuition in your gut come up and say, you know what, I don't want to take my elevator to the top floor this quickly. I don't think my system can handle it. I want to take my healing more slowly. That's just an example. Then absolutely, what I want to be able to do is I want to empower you to make that decision for yourself. So anything that you come across whether it's something online, especially in the age of fake news, you guys, in the age of fake news where our discernment is more and more crucial than ever. Anything that you come across, I want you to be able to stop and say, is this good for me? Is this working for me? If I choose to align myself with this information that is coming across, if I choose to allow something to be prescribed to me in a certain way, then if I follow it, is that good? Is that going to be good for me? I look back and I look back at a lot of my own decisions, and I look back at a lot of the things that led me to this path. And sometimes, for example, I feel anger towards mental health professionals who chose to diagnose me with, anxiety or depression or mental illness of some kind when they couldn't see that what was really going on was I was suffering from trauma. And I look at that and I think these people should have known better. And in many ways that's true. If you're a professional, then absolutely, it is your job to have a good knowledge of your field. And for me, that's why I always intend to keep learning. I think honestly, I think the real reason is I would be bored if I didn't. I don't ever want to get to that place where I'm just like, yep, this is the thing I teach, I'm done. And I don't keep growing and evolving, because that wouldn't be very fun for me. But at the same time, I also look at the ways that I was conditioned by society to also give my power away to people who had met me for an hour and just decided to put me on medication. And I look at how kind of messed up that is. I look at this idea that that it is so normal for us to just give our power away to outside authority figures. And I want to empower us to bring that back. The next time I meet a person for 1 hour, maybe even less, who listens to me, talk about like a shred of my life and then says, here, take this medication. Honestly, I think back to that moment and I'm like, my body actually knew better. My body actually was like, are you sure this is the way? Are you sure it's good for us to just jump straight to meds? And the professional in question was like, well, I can give you referrals to therapists if you'd rather. But at the time I was honestly so overwhelmed and I was in so much scarcity around money that I just went with the meds. And I look at that and I'm like, that was my choice too, because I had an instinct that I knew better and I went with it anyway. And I think it's really worth examining all the ways that society encourages us to give our power away to our decision-making power away to people who really don't know, and in many instances don't even care enough about our own well-being. And what I really want to advocate for is that at the end of the day, there's nobody who's responsible for our lives but us, sadly. And even discerning among the professionals you choose is really important. I don't work with a therapist any longer. I certainly work with some extraordinary facilitators. I have chosen them because they were more effective and more efficient than the therapists that I had experienced before. I'm not saying that that all therapists are bad, certainly. Like anything, I think you guys know I'm a bit more nuanced than that by now. Like anything, you're going to find really skilled professionals in any given field, and you are going to find less skilled professionals. You are going to find people who care about giving you a sustainable solution, and you are going to find people who are just showing up and doing a job. So anywhere you go, that's true of spiritual facilitators as well. That's really true of any field. So what I want to promote first and foremost is I want to empower you to always feel how something is working for you in your body. If you don't know yet, it's fair to try it, just like it was fair for me to try medication and then say, no, this is absolutely not for me. This actually feels terrible. I wish that I had had arrived at that conclusion earlier, before blindly just figuring that this was the solution, or what have you, and trying to stick with it, trying to make it work, and continually thinking, well, if it's not working, then maybe I'm the problem, right? But what I want to empower you to do is I want to empower you to feel into your body and say, is this working for me? Is this thing that I'm doing making me feel better, making me feel happier? Is the meal that I'm choosing to eat making me feel better, feel happier? Is the music I'm choosing to listen to making me feel better, feel happier? Is the job that I'm doing making me feel better, feel happier? Is it at least paying my bills in the meantime so that I can start to think of other steps to do, so I can get myself into a job that makes me feel better and feel happier? Is this relationship that I'm choosing making me feel better, feel happier? Is this facilitator I'm working with making me feel better, feel happier? You guys get it, right? And that goes for my videos too. That goes for everything. That goes for literally everything in your life. So I really want you to start looking at that mindset and practicing that and taking responsibility for that. Because in the course of my creating so much material, because I'm dedicating myself to this path full time, inevitably 100% of it is not going to land with you. And so that percentage that lands and you're like, I'm not sure about that, it's always worth examining. It's always worth unpacking. And it's worth saying, is there resistance that's coming up in me because of a story that I have in my head, because I don't want to move forward, because there's something here that feels like it hits too close to home? Or is this just not the right path for me? Is there a way that I can adapt this material so that it does work for me? Maybe if we're talking about like the example I used of having a speedy trauma recovery, or a speedy, whatever. Maybe it's possible that you look at that and you say, there are parts of this that don't work for me, but I really appreciate the fact that Arden is actually saying that I can control, to some extent, the speed of my healing. Cool. I can take what works from that, and I can actually decide that I'm going to decide how quickly I do my healing. That I don't need to just, take the elevator to the express stop to the top floor the way that Arden chose to. But I can learn from her lesson that actually that is something that's my choice, that's under my control. And I'm going to choose to take it at the rate that works for me. But hey, I got something out of that. That would be my ideal hope for everyone who tunes into these videos, who watches this channel, who takes my course even. There are people who took my course last summer who were like, I didn't finish the course in the 8 weeks that it took. I still have to catch up on some of that curriculum. But I feel great about that. I feel like that was good for me, and I took it at the pace that I was meant to. Cool. I'm so stoked about that. I am so happy, because it proves to me that they certainly learned something from the course if they know to trust their bodies and take it at the speed that is comfortable for them, right? So that is the art and practice of discernment. And I invite you to start bringing that mindfulness and that consciousness to your choices around everything in your life, and start asking what is really working for you and what is really not working for you. And when you get to that point where you're doing that, you will feel so much less reactive to the things in your field that are not working for you, and they won't offend you. They won't rile you up nearly as much when you just say, oh, that's not for me. It doesn't have to be a matter of judgment, a matter of right and wrong. Certainly there are things that are harmful, and there are things that are helpful. And there are things that are objectively helpful versus harmful. We're not gonna compare, we're not gonna compare like Hitler to the demonstrators at Standing Rock. Like, we all know, like, words have meanings, and some things we can look at and say that's harmful and that's helpful. But at some point, since we live in this universe where there is a full range of possibility, there are going to be things that might be helpful for someone and might feel harmful to another person. So at some point, it's important for us to use our discernment and decide what is really right for us. And that doesn't excuse harm that is being done in society. That doesn't mean that we victim blame. I hope I've made that part clear. Because certainly part of our discernment is figuring out where our advocacy is and what kind of world we are ushering in, and what kind of world we are aiming to create with our decisions and with where we put our energy. And we want to be accountable. We want to have integrity around all of that. But taking that to an extreme, would be to say that I believe that just because I'm making a YouTube channel, or a Facebook page that aims to help people, that I believe that 100% of my material is 100% helpful for people at all times. And if I did that, I think I would be delusional, quite frankly, because everyone is at a different place. So if I can teach you the art of discernment, what that means is that I empower you to make those choices for yourself based on how they feel to you. And I give you permission to not listen to anybody who is telling you something that doesn't feel right for you. There's a real balance, you guys, between blind surrender and the surrender that's called for following your own path to your next level. I used to engage in a lot of blind surrender before I woke up, for lack of a better phrase. That was giving my power away to people outside myself. When I chose to engage in conscious surrender, that meant I don't know what's on the other side of this door, but I know that I am being called to make this change. That was actually all about learning discernment and starting to trust myself and starting to trust my practice. So ultimately the difference here is, are you giving your power away to another person to make the decisions for you? Or are you allowing yourself to trust the process that you are being called into, and checking in with yourself at every possible moment and saying, how is this working out for me? Ultimately, that is the art and practice of discernment. And I would be very, very remiss if I did not dedicate at least an entire video, if not more, to that subject, because ultimately that is the foundation of so much of the work that I do and the work that I promote in the world and the change that I want to make in the world. I want to give people the power back to make their own decisions for themselves as to where to place their focus and make their choices and bring their conscious awareness that feels good and feels healthy. And to do that, we absolutely need discernment. So thank you guys for listening. I hope this was helpful. I will see you in the next video. Unless, of course, that you discern after watching this video that my videos are not for you, in which case, I welcome that as well. Although I certainly hope that they are more helpful than they are not. So thank you for watching, and till next time.